Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's presentation. I'm excited to have you here as we explore an important aspect of inheritance law. The title of our session is Munasakhat, and we'll be discussing a particular scenario that occurs when multiple heirs pass away before their inheritance is distributed. We'll look at how this situation affects the distribution process and what principles guide it. So, over the next few minutes, we'll cover the key concepts and practical implications of this topic. Let's get started. Let's talk about how Munasakhat is used in inheritance cases. Imagine a situation where the heirs of the second person who passed away are actually the remaining heirs from the first person who died. If their shares are equal on both sides, then the inheritance is distributed only among those remaining heirs. For example, suppose a man passes away and he has 3 full siblings as heirs. Now, if before the inheritance is distributed, one of those siblings also passes away, then the inheritance will be divided among the remaining siblings only. This rule helps ensure that the inheritance distribution remains fair and consistent, especially when some heirs are no longer present. It's a way of maintaining balance in the distribution process, connecting directly to our overall theme of understanding Islamic inheritance principles and how they adapt to different family situations. Let's take a closer look at this slide. As you can see, it's marked copyright 2025 by Continuous Learning Development, which indicates the ownership and the year of the content. Moving on to the table, the key point here is about full siblings. The table shows that if someone has a full sibling who has died, it's important to note that relationship clearly. The number 1 in the table signifies that there is one full sibling who has passed away. This information is crucial because understanding family relationships, especially in cases like this, can impact various aspects such as medical history, inheritance, or even genetic considerations. Remember, if the situation is not exactly as shown, meaning if the sibling is still alive or there are different family dynamics, then specific steps should be taken to clarify or update this information. Overall, this slide emphasizes the importance of accurately identifying and documenting full siblings, especially when they have passed away, as part of a comprehensive understanding of family history. This plays a vital role in the broader context of continuous learning and development, ensuring we have accurate data for informed decisions. Let's look at the first point, which is about analyzing the initial case and making any necessary amendments to the basis, if needed. This step is crucial because it ensures that our foundation is accurate before moving forward. Next, we move on to the second case. Here, we analyze it within the context of the first case, extending our examination to see how it relates. Importantly, we also need to identify the deceased person involved in this second case, as this will influence the legal considerations. Finally, we should pay attention to the heirs involved in the second case. Sometimes, an heir might be a sibling in the second case, but could be a son in the first. Recognizing these differences is essential because they can significantly impact inheritance rights and distribution. Connecting all these points, we see how critical it is to carefully analyze each case, understand the relationships involved, and adjust our basis accordingly. This thorough approach helps us ensure fair and accurate inheritance processes. As we look at this slide, I want to highlight that the copyright 2025 by Continuous Learning Development reminds us of the ongoing nature of our learning journey. Now, moving to the main content, when there is an additional heir in the second case, they are listed after the heirs of both cases. This is important because it maintains the correct order of inheritance, respecting the priority and rights of each heir. Next, we see that the relationship between the share of the second deceased person in the first case and the basis of the second case is characterized as either at tabion or at tawafuk. These terms are key in understanding how shares are calculated or adjusted depending on the context. At-tabion refers to a situation where the shares align or agree, indicating a clear and consistent relationship. On the other hand, at-tawafuk suggests a harmonious or compatible relationship, allowing for adjustments that make the distribution fair and just. Understanding these relationships helps us grasp the nuances of inheritance, especially when dealing with complex cases involving multiple heirs. It's all about ensuring that each heir's rights are preserved according to these principles. So, in the bigger picture, this slide emphasizes the importance of understanding how additional heirs are listed and how the relationships between shares influence inheritance calculations. It's a crucial part of ensuring fair and accurate distribution in accordance with Islamic inheritance law. Let's take a closer look at this slide. When the relationship between the two numbers is at tabyan, or clear, straightforward, we approach the calculation differently. In this case, we multiply the second case basis by the first case basis, and the result gives us the unified basis. This essentially means we're combining the two bases into one, based on their clear relationship. Now, if we consider the second case basis, we do a similar multiplication, but this time we multiply it by the share of the heirs of the first cases, excluding the share of the deceased. This ensures we're accurately accounting for the heirs' portions without including the deceased's share. Furthermore, the share of the second deceased person in the first case is multiplied by the share of the heirs in the second case, again excluding the basis. This step helps us properly allocate the inheritance shares when multiple heirs and deceased individuals are involved. Overall, this method ensures that when the relationship is clear, we can accurately combine and distribute shares by multiplying the relevant bases and shares, maintaining fairness and precision in inheritance calculations. All right, let's take a closer look at this table and what it represents. Here, we see different basis points labeled as basis 1, basis 2, and U basis, which stands for ultimate basis. These are essentially different methods or perspectives for calculating or understanding relationships and inheritance. Starting with basis 1, we see values like times 2, 6, a half, 1/3, a, and a half again. These are coefficients or ratios used in our calculations. Moving to basis 2, we have similar values such as times 3, 2, 3, 2, 1, and 1. The ultimate basis, or U basis, combines these to give us a final comprehensive figure, like 12, 4, 2, 2, 3, and 3. Now, the table also includes relationships and familial terms, like husband, mother, uncle, daughter, and full sibling. Notice how each of these relationships is associated with specific basis values. For example, the husband is linked with a half in basis 1 and 3 in basis 2, resulting in 12 in the ultimate basis. What this table highlights is how different assumptions or methods, these bases, affect our calculations of inheritance or relationships within a family structure. It's important because when evaluating inheritance shares or familial connections, the basis we choose can significantly influence the outcome. Ultimately, understanding these different bases helps us see the variability and complexity in calculating rights or shares in family law or estate planning. It emphasizes the importance of selecting the appropriate basis for accurate and fair results. Let's take a closer look at this slide. Here, we're talking about the concept of at-tawafuk, which is key in understanding how to combine different numbers in inheritance calculations. When the relationship between these numbers is at tawafuk, we start by taking the intermediary of the second case basis. This intermediary acts as a sort of bridge or connecting point between the two cases. Next, we multiply this intermediary by the second case basis, and the result of this multiplication becomes what we call the unified basis. Essentially, this is the combined basis that reflects both cases. Once we have this unified basis, the next step is to multiply it by the shares of each heir in the first case, but importantly, we exclude the share of the deceased in this step. This helps us distribute the inheritance proportionally while respecting the specific shares assigned. Finally, we also multiply the intermediary of the second deceased person by the shares of each heir in the second case, again excluding the share of the basis. All of these steps are interconnected, and they emphasize the importance of understanding how different bases and shares interact when calculating inheritance. This process ensures accuracy and fairness, especially in complex cases where multiple heirs and deceased persons are involved. This method ties directly into our overall theme of precise inheritance distribution, highlighting how detailed calculations can uphold justice and clarity in inheritance matters. Let's take a closer look at this table, which summarizes different basis calculations and how they relate to each other. Here, we have two key bases, basis 1 and basis 2, and a unified basis. Basis 1 includes factors like times 2, times 1, and specific values such as 6.5, which represent proportions or weights assigned in different contexts. Basis 2 similarly has values like 6, 3, and 2, reflecting alternative calculations or perspectives. The U basis column shows the combined or resulting factors, such as 12, 4, or 2, which help us understand the overall impact or contribution of each element. Now, looking at the row labeled husband, for instance, we see that the basis involves a times 2 factor in basis 1 and a value of 6 in basis 2, leading to a U basis of 12. This indicates a doubled impact or weight in the calculation, which is important when considering inheritance or resource sharing. Similarly, for mother, we see different ratios, a half and 1/3, showing how varying assumptions or scenarios influence the overall basis. For example, with a half basis, the impact is 3 in basis 2, resulting in a U basis of 4. Other entries such as uncle, maternal siblings, and paternal sibling show how different family members contribute differently based on these basis calculations. These variations are crucial in understanding how inheritance shares are determined, especially when multiple relationships intersect. Overall, this table highlights the importance of understanding the basis or foundation of each calculation. It emphasizes that different assumptions can significantly change the outcome, which ties back to our overall theme of assessing inheritance or resource distribution fairly and accurately. Now, let's look at how inheritance works when an heir is set to inherit from more than one deceased person. In such cases, the shares from each deceased are combined into what we call a unified basis. This means that the heir's total inheritance is the sum of their shares from each deceased, all calculated under this single, combined framework. Next, to make sure our calculations are accurate, we add together the shares of all the heirs under this unified basis. If this total matches the unified basis itself, then our analysis is correct. But if it doesn't, that indicates there's an error somewhere in the process, and we need to review our calculations. And what if there are multiple deceased individuals? Well, in that case, we don't stop at just one unified basis. Instead, we add a second unified basis through the first, then a third if needed, much like we saw in the earlier examples. This step-by-step approach helps us manage complex inheritance scenarios systematically, ensuring that each case is handled with clarity and precision, which ties back to our overall goal of accurate and fair inheritance distribution.